Hello everyone, my name is Havian and today I'm going to be playing some Outriders. Since I've had a chance to play Outriders, I'll be sharing my first impressions after spending a few hours playing it at a Square Enix preview event. And I'll also be giving you a brief overview of what's been announced for the game so far. The event was hosted over the internet, so I had to play Outriders remotely, but despite that, everything ran well enough for me to capture some footage and get a good feel for the game. But just keep in mind that all of the footage in this video is from an in-development build of the PC version, so things are still work in progress and there is a chance that it could change before release. I did have a chance to try both multiplayer and single player, so I'll be talking about both. But the majority of the gameplay shown will be of me playing solo using the Pyromancer class on World Tier 5, and I'll also be showing a few other bits of gameplay from the previous Outrider broadcasts. Outriders is an upcoming online third-person RPG shooter from People Can Fly and Square Enix, releasing on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on February 2nd, 2021. Multiplayer will also be crossplay between all platforms, so you can create a party of up to 3 people and play together no matter which system you're on. The developers People Can Fly has made it clear that Outriders is not a live service game and it won't have microtransactions. It will be released as a full story-driven RPG shooter with cross-platform co-op multiplayer. Additional content like expansions and seasonal events are being considered for the future, but right now they want to focus on the base game, so they can be sure that people are happy with the amount of content they're paying for at release. It seems like the developers are putting a bit of extra effort into the story of Outriders than you would usually expect from a loot-focused shooter, and I'm sure that a lot of people will be interested in learning more about the planet Enoch, and the reasons why people had to leave Earth in order to find a new place to live. But that's not really the reason I'm interested in playing Outriders. For me, the main draw is the loot, progression systems, and the gameplay, and if the story is good, then that's definitely a bonus. Gameplay-wise, Outriders is chaotic and violent, and it's designed in a way that caters to an aggressive playstyle. You can hide behind cover and you can try to take things slowly and play it safe, but eventually enemies will throw grenades, start casting special attacks that need to be interrupted by your skills, or rush you down in order to force you out of cover. And if you take damage in combat, you won't be able to use anything as simple as a medkit or a potion to recover your health. In Outriders, for the most part, you'll need to get up close to an enemy and deal damage to them in order to reliably heal yourself. Your short ability cooldowns and the way you recover your health encourages you to put pressure on the enemies to force them into hiding so that you can keep the fight under control. The ways that you can heal will vary between the classes, but based on what I played, the Pyromancer seemed to be the only class that had a support skill that could heal allies directly. But it was possible for Pyromancers to also heal themselves more consistently by absorbing health from enemies by dealing damage to them. So you're encouraged to be aggressive with your attacks to stay alive, since being passive will probably lead to you being overwhelmed by enemies. Outriders also includes a few mechanics and gameplay systems that will be familiar to people that have played MMORPGs or similar games that have defined class roles for combat. Each class seems to be able to reliably support the party in some way, but since everyone will be able to heal themselves, most of the support skills seem to have more of a focus on crowd control and defense. If you're playing in a group, it's possible for one person to take the role of tank and shield the party from damage. Someone else can use crowd control abilities to keep the enemies in one place, so it's easier for everyone to take them down, and another person can focus on using their skills to interrupt enemy cast bars, so they don't use their powerful attacks on the party. I'm used to playing RPG shooters, and I know that some enemies can take a lot of hits before they go down. But when I played Outriders for the first time, it did feel like enemies took a lot longer to die than I expected. This was mainly because when I was playing for the first time, they threw me into a higher world tier, so the difficulty was increased. And because I rushed to get started with the game, I didn't really spend much time thinking about how I was building my character. The build I was using at the beginning didn't make the most of the weapons and skills I had equipped, but eventually I spent a bit of time going through the class skill tree to check all of the available abilities and how they could interact with my current equipment and active skills. And after making those changes, it definitely improved my damage output. But what really made the most difference was relying on my powers or active skills a bit more. Using your powers in combat is very important in Outriders, and they're more than just an emergency button that you use if you're in danger. They're a core part of your combat kit, and you'll need to make use of them often if you want to reliably get through battles. Your weapons are still essential since they will contribute to your overall build, and you'll need to use them when your skills are on cooldown, but there is definitely more of an emphasis on skill use in Outriders compared to similar games. Currently, 4 classes have been announced for Outriders, which are the Trickster, the Pyromancer, the Devastator, and the Technomancer. The Trickster is a close range class that can control time and space to stun and slow down enemies. They can also use their skills to teleport behind enemies, which gives them the advantage against targets that like to keep their distance. The Pyromancer is a mid-range class that uses its explosive area of effect fire abilities to immobilize and ignite multiple enemies and deal additional damage over time. A Pyromancer's real strength lies in its ability to deal damage to multiple targets. The Devastator is a close range class that uses the power of Earth to interrupt enemies and shield party members from damage. They can also use the power of gravity to pull enemies out of cover and keep them together. And the Technomancer is a long range class that can use its support abilities to heal party members and freeze enemies in place. They can also manipulate technology to create devastating weapons out of thin air. You can equip up to 3 active skills that can be used in battle, and you're able to freely change your builds and edit these skills whenever you want. When you level up, you'll gain skill points that can be spent in your skill tree to unlock passive bonuses that enhance your skills, weapons, and overall effectiveness in battle. Each skill tree branches into 3 different paths that specialize in a different aspect of the class. But starting in one specialization doesn't mean that you're locked into it, since you're able to branch into other paths if there are a few passive abilities that you want from some of the other specializations. But if you ever make a mistake or you need to make some adjustments to your build, you can reset your skill tree at no cost, which is useful if you're someone that likes to constantly adjust your build and test how things work. Your weapons are important for dealing damage to enemies, but it's the synergy between your active skills, the mods you have in your equipment, and the passive abilities that you've selected on your skill tree that will determine how effective you are during battles. While I was playing, I was only allowed to visit specific areas in the game, but from what I saw, there were various hub areas where you could pick up quests, matchmake with other players, and upgrade your equipment. You can upgrade your equipment in various ways using the crafting system, but the most important enhancements will probably be through mods. When opening treasure chests, defeating enemies, or getting rewards from quests, you can obtain equipment that will have enhancements called mods. There are a variety of mods to find, and the quality and the amount of mod slots available in a piece of equipment will be determined by its rarity. It's possible for you to find armor with mods attached that can enhance your class's abilities, and you can find weapons with mods that will give your attacks useful enhancements that you wouldn't usually have access to on your chosen class. And if you're someone that likes to chase rare loot, legendary gear will come with their own dedicated mods that can only be found on that specific piece of equipment. You can break down your old equipment to obtain crafting materials, and if that equipment has a mod in it that you don't currently have unlocked, that mod gets permanently unlocked and can be used when crafting. Unlocked mods can then be attached to other pieces of equipment, so even if enemies drop something you don't need, there's still a chance that you can find a mod that will make your current gear even better. The amount of freedom I had when it came to customizing my builds and character was a bit surprising, but this level of customization could be what Outriders needs in order to set itself apart from similar games. There's also character creation in Outriders, and you can freely change your character's appearance in hub areas while playing. It's not as deep as some of the other character creators out there, and it's pretty much just facial customization, but it does give you enough options to just play around with and make your character look the way you want it to. You can also customize your emotes, the appearance of your personal banner, and you can even edit the appearance of your vehicle. I don't actually think you can drive your vehicle around manually, but it does take you to different locations in the world throughout the story, and it is shown during cutscenes, so at least you can see it there. There were also various challenges for me to complete for additional rewards. These challenges are split between a variety of different categories, and they seem to offer cosmetic rewards if you completed their objectives. And along with the character progression systems that I mentioned earlier, you'll also be able to progress through various world tiers that get increasingly harder. But in return, you will get better rewards that can help you reach even higher world tiers, so that you can gear up for even bigger challenges later in the game. Unlocking new world tiers will increase the stats and levels of enemies in the world, the drop rate of legendary equipment, the chance for higher rarity gear, and from world tier 4 onwards, it will increase the maximum level of equipment dropped, and it will also unlock the ability for you to wear equipment that is above your current level. Your performance in combat will get you experience points that will go to increasing your world tier level, and it is possible for you to freely move between world tiers that you have previously unlocked. However, if you die in battle, you will lose a percentage of your world tier experience, so you'll need to be able to comfortably handle your current world tier before you'll be allowed to progress to the next one. Along with the world tier system, it was announced that Outriders will have an additional endgame mode called Expeditions. At release, Expeditions will have 14 challenging dedicated areas that come with their own storylines and require teamwork and well-made builds in order to complete. They also emphasize that expedition areas are not recycled from the main game, and they were specifically created for people that want an extra challenge after finishing the main story and after gearing up their characters. Expeditions have their own progression system called challenge tiers, and in expedition areas you're judged on how fast you can complete the mission. Depending on how fast you finish, you'll be rewarded with additional loot and challenge tiers. As your challenge tiers increase, the levels of enemies and the levels of the rewards you can obtain will also increase, and after reaching specific challenge tiers, new expedition areas will be unlocked for you to explore. From what I've played of the game so far, I know that I'll enjoy playing Outriders once it's released. The aggressive gameplay plus the shorter cooldowns on your abilities really did make fighting fun. And as someone that usually prefers playing in these kinds of games solo, I'd still highly recommend playing this game in co-op, since it's an entirely different experience and it's much more fun than I was expecting. The difficulty and the amount of enemies increases when playing with other people, which makes the fights much more intense and chaotic, and often results in more opportunities for loot. So I can probably see this being one of the few games that I'll be playing mainly in multiplayer, especially since the crossplay will lead to a much healthier multiplayer community. But as much as I enjoyed the gameplay and progression systems in Outriders, the environments and overall visual style of the game didn't really stand out. I know generic is a word that gets thrown around a lot in gaming, but honestly, based on what's been shown to the public so far, I can understand why a common criticism for this game is that it looks generic. On the surface, it looks like just another gritty cover shooter with aliens, but when you're actually playing it, you'll start to see how entertaining and fun it can actually be. People Can Fly and Square Enix will probably have a hard time trying to convince people that there's more to this game than there appears to be at first glance, so something really does need to be done to grab people's attention so that this game doesn't end up being overlooked. Possibly something like a beta before the game releases. There have been a lot of loot-focused games that have released over the last few years, and a lot of them have overpromised and underdelivered. For Outriders to stand out, it will need to do a bit more than just be simply another loot grind. One thing a lot of these games lacked is an engaging and well-presented storyline or main campaign. If the developers can find a way to make a satisfying action RPG that people will play for the solo or co-op campaign, and then provide a fun and fulfilling loot grind on top of that to keep people enjoying the game for even longer, then they'll have a strong RPG for early 2021. People have been burnt by a lot of these recent releases, so here's the hoping that People Can Fly can deliver on their promises of a game that will be worth people's money. And based on what I've played so far, this game is definitely on the right track. But let's just hope that this game is well optimized on all of the announced platforms on release. I post smaller gameplay clips and news updates over on Twitter between the videos that I make. So if you want to stay up to date with everything I'm doing, I'll put the links to Twitter and a few other places you can find me in the description. I'll be covering Outriders up until it releases and beyond, so if you want to see any of the other gameplay videos I make for Outriders or other action RPGs, then don't forget to subscribe and remember to click the bell so you'll be the first to know when a new video is available. I'll be making some new videos very soon, but until I make those videos, I'll see you all later.